Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. I'm Nasir Qadri, Executive Director, Legal Forum for Kashmir. Welcome to our first session of war series on Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Today we will be discussing the human rights violation Dosier 2021 published by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Government of Pakistan. The dossier was presented by Mr. Shah Mahmud Qureshi, Foreign Minister, Mr. Mueed Yusuf, National Security Advisor, and Dr. Shiri Mazari, Minister for Human Rights. I'm pleased to be joined by highly qualified barrister from Jammu and Kashmir, Ms. Sundas Malik. Ms. Malik is former media spokesperson of NUPS, chairperson, United Jammu and Kashmir Coalition. Welcome, Ms. Sundas Malik, in our podcast.
Gee, thank you so much, Nasir. Thank you for having me. And thank you for taking out time to discuss such an issue.
Thank you very much. So before we begin, let us give an overview of whatever happened yesterday or day before yesterday, I guess. So we have a dossier with us. Let us discuss on this, the dossier part, which was, a comprehensive dossier published by Government of Pakistan.
Yes.
In this dossier, I see the first ever dossier where a comprehensive details have been given by the Government of Pakistan, the concerned ministry. The dossier is titled as Human Rights Violation 2021, Indian Human Rights Violation in the Indian Illegally Occupied Jammu and Kashmir.
Yes.
They have reported some war crimes. If I give some details, as per the dossier of 2021, they have reported some 96,000 extrajudicial killings in occupied Kashmir, 11,250 women raped, 23,000 women widowed, and 25,000 pellet victims, and nearly one. Okay. And other than this, there are very important, very comprehensive details of the war criminals. Some 1,128 war criminals have been named, 946 cases of 1,785 victims of the genocidal act, 4,474 cases of the torture, 14 cases of 63 victims of sexual violence, 10 cases of victims, 117 cases related to the enforced disappearance. Other than there are cases of 1,246 pellet victims, and other than this, very important cases, which are 118 units of Indian occupying forces were named who were involved in the war crime. So, Ms. Sundas Malik, to begin our podcast, I want to just, we had a brief introduction. If you can give your introduction and begin our conversation with whatever happens in the Indian occupied Kashmir.
All right. Well, I don't think much more introduction is needed in my regard, because I think you've pretty much summed it up just as you did with the dossier itself. But as far as what this dossier speaks to, and what it speaks to about the humanitarian aspect of the Kashmir issue, I think it's not only comprehensive, but I think it's much more impactful. I think curdling down 73 years of atrocities into 115 pages. I think it's one of the best steps in the right directions at the moment. As far as the Kashmir Valley is concerned, I think anyone who has ever been associated with the Kashmir Valley knows about the continuous human rights atrocities and war crimes that have been occurring. It is one of, I think, the world's greatest hidden secrets or most well, I would rather say most well-known hidden secrets, where I think everyone around the world knows what's going on in Kashmir, not maybe in this much detail, but they are aware. Yet, due to Indian influence or their trade need, this sort of issue is always suppressed. So I think it's a very good step, although some might say, or the critics might say, that it's a late step. But I think Pakistan.
I'm coming to that same question.
Yes,
Even
yes.
let me critique it. Like 73 years of war of liberation going on in Indian occupied Kashmir, and then last 30 years, the most hostile armed conflict, where more than 1 million peoples have been martyred by the occupying forces, and there are gruesome violations of the rape used as a weapon of war, the atrocity crimes, to be specific, enforced disappearance, use of banned chemical weapons, as has been mentioned. Sundas, one failed to understand why the late step.
Well, I don't consider this a late step. I would rather consider it a more formed step by Pakistan. I don't think that Pakistan has ever deviated from the ideology of Kashmir, and also from highlighting it through its diplomatic channels. I think it has always tried to keep the world, the UN itself, and the humanitarian organizations privy to the situation in Kashmir. But we don't see that much effort, as you might say, on paper from or from what people would like, but in its own capacity, dealing with destabilization in its own area, a war on terror, all of that. I think all through the 74 years, Pakistan has continued to stand with the people of Kashmir and highlight the issues. Although this is a different step, and I think it's a step in the right direction in order to increase pressure on the occupiers.
Definitely, undoubtedly, even Pakistan's stand has been very vigorous and sometimes aggressive as well. But to be specific on the lawfare, if in 90s we have witnessed, Kashmir has witnessed some 11 mass massacres. Uh,
Yes.
One failed to understand the delay I mean, projecting all those cases or naming all the war criminals, because they're present. If I quote one case of the some few massacres which were perpetrated which were ordered in fact by the Jagmohan.
Mm-hmm.
So he's no more now, but he was alive. He could have been prosecuted, because there are ample evidence, clear evidence available against the Jagmohan, but then the governor of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir.
Yes.
So
It's I believe that the barriers that Pakistan faces in sort of creating enough pressure to ensure persecution of such war criminals. I think it comes from the UN resolutions itself. It is sort of a double-edged sword, I believe, which although keeps Pakistan to be a party to the case of India, between India and Kashmir. It's a part of the case. However, I think its interference is at many times viewed as as India has propagated before, as an unwelcomed gesture. And the rest of the world, I think, we have legal precedents of countries who have taken cases on such basis to other humanitarian forums like the International Court of Justice. But I think more than Pakistan, I think the world also needs to pay a little more attention to the case, because Pakistan can only do so much being a party to a case itself. It
True.
cannot, it cannot, it is not part of the Roman statute, so it cannot invoke the International Court of Justice on its own. But the UNSC, who has witnessed everything, who has passed resolutions all over Kashmir, and who is privy to such atrocities, they have a right to refer to the case to the ICJ, or the ICC. But yes.
If I add, there is if I add in the Rome statute, there is an powers which lies to the prosecution. I mean prosecutor. Uh, he or she there, he can issue the suo motu cognizance, because if 1128 war criminals who are involved in these
Yes.
heinous war crimes have
Yes.
been named, and there is an ample evidence available against them, so
Yes.
so the prosecutor of International Criminal Court, he has an powers to initiate a suo motu cognizance.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say, that they can take suo motu actions. UNSC has the power to refer the case. Other country, a country who may feel like, just as an example of Gambia versus Myanmar, where they filed a case against Myanmar on the basis of the Rohingya genocide and asked for preventive measures. Or if we talk about the case between, you see, Bosnia and Yugoslavia, where the same statute was invoked, not in the beginning, but later, to hold preventive measures and increase pressure on countries to do right by its people. So I think it's not just the responsibility of Pakistan; it's the responsibility of allies, or not just of Pakistan, but allies of humanity who propagate propagate themselves as flag bearers of human rights. I think they also have a very important responsibility to bring this issue to light, along with Pakistan.
Better late than never. But we have to see, if it was for the optics, then again it would be a kind of I mean
Honestly,
hope.
I would differ from the belief that this is just for optics. I think it is the beginning of a sort of a barrage of claims that will be, I think, coming from Pakistan side, exposing India, their atrocities in Kashmir. And as they have, we now know that India is not only responsible militarily in Kashmir, but it's also responsible, we know through the dossier as well, that they're responsible for spreading disinformation, creating disenfranchisement. So they're fighting a very dirty war in Kashmir at the moment. And I think Pakistan has, I may um, hinder from calling this waking up, but I think maybe Pakistan has woken up to the right procedure, as far as it is concerned, to deal with the Kashmir issue, to enforce India to come on at least the table to talk about the issue. So I think it might be late, but I think it's the beginning of a new strategy rather than just an optical thing.
So what should be the follow-up step of government of Pakistan? Fine, where everyone can see the very important cases, the clear evidences, their clear figures. The references are very independent. They are from the independent media, international reports. They have the reference of from the international these reports of UN and other. So what would be the follow-up step after this dossier? What do you
I,
think?
I think, like I said before, it's just, although it is very comprehensive, it's just the first step. I think we need many more documents such as this, testimonials, recording Indian atrocities. Uh, Pakistan as a country, it has the capacity to sort of berate UNSC for their silence, because these violations, they're occurring in violation to their own resolutions. they're occurring in violation to their own humanitarian laws. So I think the UNSC can play a very important part, and Pakistan can force, along with its allies, to maybe advise, like I said before, to settle the dispute through a judicial settlement if possible. It can also get advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice. So I think aggression is the key word. Pakistan needs to get a little more aggressive at the lawfare end of the Kashmir issue.
True. I believe that Pakistan has to play a very pragmatic role, and aggressive diplomacy is required. But if we see when this Article 370 was abrogated, when unilaterally, the act which India did amounts to act of aggression, because there was no, they didn't follow the mandate of the law, their own precedents. Then
Yes,
we know, everyone knows, there was an informal meeting of United Nations Security Council on this issue, but it was an
yes,
informal session on the crime of aggression, a crime of aggression which is one of the element of the crime in the Rome Statute. If
yes,
we, the war crime against humanity, and the crime of aggression. That's what
yes,
I believe India did when it unilaterally abrogated the Article 370.
yes.
So how do you see the now the United Nations Security Council, if in case government of Pakistan would pitch for the advisory opinion on this issue, or for that matter, government of Pakistan as a party would pursue this case, the case of a lawfare, particularly this war crime case, before the judicial forums? Will it be the fate would be the same, the game of the soft powers?
Well, I believe, as they say, justice is never fair. So until and unless we bring the case to the right forum, we won't know what the result will be. All I think the most important thing is to prepare the case for Kashmir with the intent of curbing or curtailing their aggression in the Kashmir Valley. As far as the UNSC is concerned, they do have a lot of power if they decide to use it. But as you said before, will it just be sort of a fizzle out effect? Like you said, during the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, there was a closed session held. Well, we don't need closed sessions. We need special sessions. We need emergency sessions. We need sanctions. We need specific sanctions.
Of course.
But
If one
unfortunately,
see, of course, it is an emergency situation, because one
yes,
can see the grave human rights violation, the grave war crimes perpetrated by the occupying forces in India, Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So let us discuss. I want to know a few things, like if I see the cases of tortures, the sexual abuses, the pellet guns. Uh, we believe the pellet gun is still, I believe this pellet gun is still prevalent in the occupied valley. It's still the Indian occupying forces use pellet guns as a crowd control measures. But this pellet petition was challenged before the Supreme Court of India. So
yes,
the domestic remedy has been exhausted, but there is no outcome of that petition. That petition is already pending from last, I believe the petition was filed in 2016, 2016 it was filed. And
yes,
there is no outcome of that petition, like the petition of this Article 370, which is pending there. Coming to
yes,
these the enforced disappearance cases or the torture cases, deliberately, I believe the India has stayed away itself from ratifying certain conventions which may
yes,
trouble India. So,
yes.
what is the scenario if they are not party to these conventions? So, how would we invoke?
Well, although they don't ratify to, I think you're talking about some of the Geneva Conventions,
Not
or
Geneva, the Geneva Convention 4, they are
some
party to all the four Geneva Conventions, but additional protocol, they are not party, because
yes, yes,
yes,
yes.
All
They're
because
not.
I believe as a student of law, why they are not party to the AP1, because it legitimizes the right to self-determination movements, the war of liberation movements, and
It's
because
basically pretension. It's basically
yeah.
pretension in order to cover up their own, as they say, ignorance of law is not a defense. But that's what exactly what India is doing. It's claiming ignorance of law by not ratifying, the additional protocols. So I believe that although they have not ratified the special protocols, but again, the UNSC has the discretion of putting up sanctions in order to pressurize them, as they are pressurizing despite every single effort. They're pressurizing Pakistan at the economic level to get their things in order regarding the FATF grey list. The same way, I think India can be dealt with, being an economy which cannot, I think, due to the current situation, cannot bear any further economic loss. I think economical sanctions or military sanctions, and as you said before, against the war criminals, specific sanctions. I think these are tools available to the UNSC. They have the discretion, they have the power, and same. I would again say that allies who claim to be on Kashmir side, or who claim to be on the side of humanity, I think they also need to get up, pull up their socks, and put their money where their mouth is. They have the capacity to go to the International Court of Justice and ask for preventive measures. So I think it's a collective success and a collective failure if things are not dealt with properly.
I'll repeat my earlier question that
Yes.
I'm I'm worried about the follow up. God forbid, must not be the optics, merely for the optics. If in
Yes.
case, if in case I ask you, what would be the follow up step of Pakistan, I would repeat the question. How do you see, or what is, what do you? I'm sorry. How do you see the government of Pakistan should, I mean, pursue this case, the follow up after this, these war crime dossier?
Okay.
The
So
first step.
I hate to hear you repeat your question, but I'll repeat my answer. So Pakistan needs, number one, aggressive diplomacy, uh, with not only the UN but with its allies. Secondly, it needs to approach the UNHRC for repeated special sessions on the issue of Kashmir. And I think, as they have before highlighted the issue of Palestine. They've helped. Imran Khan spoke in the UN on Kashmir. These things do have an impact more than optics. So I think aggressive diplomacy, reaching out to allies, finding further sort of hidden shames of India, which they're carrying out in Kashmir, and also the what would I call the espionage that they're trying to commit in Pakistan itself, I think can be correlated again to the issue in Kashmir. So I think all these things become a huge weapon for Pakistan to use at an international level against India. uh, I think only this document speaks volumes about what's going on. Now, what the reaction should be, it is up to Pakistan. And again, I would hate to say it, but its allies. One country, unfortunately, I don't think, as much as we would like, cannot have that much of an impact. And also, I think creating the same rigor and what you would say interest in the issue within Pakistan is also very important. But I think the best solution right now is to get on with China, get on with other allies, and force India, whether it's economically, whether it's militarily, to come on the table. Not, I would not go for aggressive measures militarily, but I think aggression should be used as far as getting them to a talking table is concerned.
I feel it
So,
necessary to bring I feel it
yes,
necessary to bring the facts, the report of 2018 and
yes,
2019.
yes.
Again, it was the first ever report. I mean, it was the first ever report of United Nations Office of the High Commission for the Human Rights,
Uh-huh.
2018 report and 2019 report,
Yes,
which
yes,
clearly mentioned that India, the government of India, and its the occupying army is using. They use the extra. There's an excessive use of force against the civilian
yes,
population.
yes.
The impunity under the Armed Force Special Powers Act, Public Safety
Uh-huh.
Act. I
Uh-huh.
mean, with Jeopard,
UAPA. Yeah,
UAPA, and other black laws. But if we
yes,
see the observations and then the fact, they recommend that the both of the countries should depute the fact-finding missions. Uh, but uh,
yes.
but we know both of the countries, they didn't allow the fact-finding mission to the respective territories, disputed territories. Mm,
Yes. Yes,
So
well,
cooperating.
it's I believe it's a sort of power show. It can it has the hazards of becoming a power show where one country does not adhere to something, so the other decides not to as well. But I think Pakistan does not have anything to hide in AJK. It doesn't have any thing to sort of conceal as far as the fact-finding missions are concerned. Whereas India, I think it again, like you mentioned, a step from Pakistan in this direction can compel in India. It can put a lot of pressure on India to do the same. And if it doesn't, I think even then it is a very good step, because then Pakistan would hold a stronger position as far as the claims of humanitarian atrocities are concerned against Pakistan in Kashmir. So I think it will clear a lot of things out. But I guess the UN missions who are already here must be reporting the situation on this side of the valley at least. As we know that the journalistic rights and rights of reporting have a lot of problems coming in from the occupied valley. So I think it's difficult, but again, this is something that India needs to be pressurized into. This is not something that I think they will ever agree to themselves. That's exactly what I'm saying, that bringing a fact-finding mission to Pakistan would put the ball in India's court, as they say. So it would increase pressure on and I believe not only AJK, not only Pakistan administered Kashmir. I would in fact invite them to visit GB as well, because this facade by India of occupation in GB and AJK needs to end. And the only way it can end is if a third party agrees to the fact that Pakistan has never ever taken the same stance as India has, and never established itself as an occupier in the Kashmir Valley.
Okay, my last question, and then we'll end up our conversation, would be the role of the Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Uh,
Yes.
oh, how do you see the role of the Azad Jammu and Kashmir in this Dosier case? The Azad Jammu and Kashmir, the government, uh, whether they have a role to pursue these cases as an liberated part to the different judicial forums. How do you see the role of Azad Jammu and Kashmir?
Well, legally speaking, we know that Azad Jammu and Kashmir does have its own government, but as far as foreign affairs, um, uh, economic affairs, and military affairs, they're currently being run by Pakistan itself. Although I consider Azad Jammu and Kashmir to be a very important part in the Kashmir movement, it is, in my opinion, it is the base camp for the Kashmir movement. And the government of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, as you were talking earlier, any steps that they take as far as statements or meetings or anything, unfortunately, I find them to be more symbolic at the moment. Rather than have any impact, but again, as they say, every little helps. So I think even as a result of this dossier, if the government of AJK passes a resolution in its assembly where it not only condemns these atrocities, but calls itself to be in a state of a perpetual war uh, due to these atrocities looming over their heads, this can also have an international impact on this issue. AJK is not third party; it's the party. It's ground zero for the Kashmir issue, because it's the only part that is not occupied at the moment. So I believe even if this sort of a case is taken to the Supreme Court of AJK, um, the orders that result from it may have testimonial impact at the
That's
international level.
that's my
Yes,
point. That's my point.
yes,
If not Azad Jammu Kashmir, why don't
yes,
I believe, as a student of law, if not a resolution on this particular thing, why can't
yes,
Azad Jammu and Kashmir government have a kind of a war crime tribunal which would hear the cases of these war crimes? At least you would have an archives, and then it would be a testimony.
yes,
A
yes.
liberated part would take the cases of the other brothers who are caged, who are under this colonial army, who are facing the heat. At least they can take it and to the international judicial forums.
Yes, well, like I said before, AJK is ground zero for the Kashmir movement. So they will not only have a testimonial value if such a case is filed, but if the people of AJK sort of turn their attention more towards the occupied valley, they would find that not only the people of IUJK are being displaced. The people of AJK, many families who are currently sitting in the Jammu Kashmir, in the Azad Kashmir Valley as migrants, do have the right to go back to their land, which they have been dislocated from. So I think even they can become huge assets for the people of Kashmir to testify at international forums regarding these atrocities. And a tribunal would regulate such proceedings and make them more forthcoming and more recordable, so to say. This needs to be archived as much as possible. So I think it is one of the strategies which can be used in order to further expose and um, I would say ask for the persecution of India. So it is a valid um, modus operandi. I mean, it's a valid thing that we can do.
Thank you, Barrister Sundar Malik, for having you with us. I'm sharing your valuable expert opinions on this. Very important issue. Kashmir is now, it is one of the longest military occupation in the human history, with all these atrocity crimes, the heinous war crimes, and no prosecution, the black laws with the absolute impunity of Indian, these occupying troops, and
Unfortunately, yes.
unfortunately, yes. Thank you once again. Thank you. We'll be having a second session of our podcast war series with Justice Ali Nawaz Chauhan shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.